The truth is a muscle you forget how to use. For decades, it atrophies, hidden behind paperwork and patriotic myths, until it's nothing but a painful rumor, a ghost story whispered in the shadows of the nation. This man, let's call him the whistleblower, he knew the price of that silence. He tried to tell us, back in '78, before his classified file became the first page of his obituary. He didn't talk about spies or nuclear secrets. He talked about a place, a government project deep in the American interior, built not to defend the country, but to run an experiment on the impossible. And every single person who went near it paid the price. They told us this place would save us from the night, but it was a factory for silent coffins, and every person who ever stepped inside became a living casualty of the promise. The strange machine that made people die in impossible ways. This is the story they never wanted you to hear. To understand the machine, we first have to understand the era, the mid-20th century, a time of boundless technological optimism, financed by boundless paranoia. The Cold War was the perfect engine for the truly bizarre, the projects that could never survive the daylight of public scrutiny. The official story was simple: Project Nightingale, a remote high-security facility near a military testing range. The public-facing goal? Developing advanced material science for the nascent space program. In reality, the scientists here, let's call them the architects, weren't looking up, they were looking in. The earliest records, now deeply declassified, talk about something called the resonance chamber, a massive, non-standard apparatus constructed over 3 years with a blank check from the Department of Defense. It wasn't designed to create power or weapons or even new materials. It was designed to bend physics, to test the threshold of fundamental reality. The budget was astronomical, the secrecy was absolute, but the most alarming thing about Nightingale wasn't the expense or the purpose. It was the pattern of personnel files that began to accumulate, all stamped with the same chilling exit code, C12, unforeseen complications. The investigator, a diligent journalist in the late '90s who pieced together the leaked file, found something terrifying in that ledger. The deaths, not accidents, not conventional illness, impossible deaths. A facility built to save the future was quietly destroying the people running it. What do I mean by impossible? Imagine this: a technician working near the machine suddenly develops internal bleeding in organs that are perfectly healthy. No impact, no exposure to toxins, just an impossible, systematic, perfect rupture of tissue, as if every cell decided to simply let go at the same moment. Another case, a lead scientist, the insider, found dead in his bed, miles away from the facility. Cause of death? A complete and instantaneous shutdown of his autonomic nervous system, the heart, the lungs, everything. Medically, he was simply turned off. The official conclusion, of course, was always vague: acute myocardial event.
Now we get to the heart of the conspiracy. We believe, and this is what the whistleblower confirmed before his silence became permanent, that the machine wasn't designed to test physics. It was designed to alter the fundamental rules of life. The machine, the resonance chamber, was creating what the architects called a chronal dampening field, a localized area where the stability of organic matter, your cells, your nervous impulses, the simple, reliable beat of your heart was slightly, yet perfectly destabilized. It wasn't a sudden killer, it was a slow, perfect corrosion. It was a factory for long-delayed, invisible trauma. And this is the point where the fear began to infect the facility itself. The scientists weren't just observing the machine, they were slowly being consumed by it. The witness, a technician who fled the project in '65, wrote a harrowing, unverified account years later. She described the deep psychological toll, the constant headaches, the overwhelming sense of dread, and the profound, certain knowledge that the air itself was tainted, that something was fundamentally wrong with their bodies and no doctor could see it. And that brings us back to the warning, the haunting, prophetic whisper that defined the failure of this entire hidden enterprise. The simple, tragic truth that the promise of protection became the architect of their downfall. They told us this place would save us from the night, but it was a factory for silent coffins, and every person who ever stepped inside became a living casualty of the promise. By the mid-'70s, Project Nightingale was a disaster, not because the machine didn't work, it worked terrifyingly well, but because the complications were mounting. They couldn't keep burying their own people. The project was officially mothballed and relabeled Operation Ghostlight. The new mandate under Ghostlight wasn't to experiment anymore, it was containment. The machine was powered down, but the architects realized the damage was already done. The chronal dampening field hadn't just affected the machine's inner circle, it had spread. Imagine a small, remote town just 10 miles downwind from the facility. A town, let's call it Riverbend, near a major American river. They had no idea they were living in the slow burn residue of a government experiment. But the records show a startling increase in bizarre, impossible medical conditions within that area. Think about this. A subtle, permanent vibration, a background noise in the fundamental fabric of reality. People in Riverbend began to experience accelerated aging, unexplained neurological disorders in perfectly healthy children. The deaths were still impossible, but now they were widespread, disguised by conventional diagnoses like cancer or stroke. The machine was silent, but its ghost was killing an entire community. The investigator learned that the field's residual effect was cumulative. The longer you spent near the facility, the faster the field corroded your stability. And for the people who built it, the ones who spent years inside the resonance chamber, their fates were sealed the moment they took the job. They were living on borrowed time, and every time a new name was added to the C12 list, it proved the prophecy was not just a warning, it was a self-fulfilling curse.
They told us this place would save us from the night, but it was a factory for silent coffins, and every person who ever stepped inside became a living casualty of the promise. It was never about saving us. It was about seeing how we broke. Now, we have to talk about the truth that was hidden behind code names and classified dates. We have to tear down the veil of Project Nightingale and Operation Ghostlight, the chronal dampening field, the impossible deaths, the facility built on a promise and designed to destroy. The question you've been asking for 15 minutes is, where did this happen? The remote facility in the American West, near a major American river, was, in fact, an annex built adjacent to one of the most secret and dangerous military-industrial zones in American history. It was a site where the promise of a better future was always laced with poison, and the machine, the chronal dampening resonance chamber, it was secretly incorporated into the power infrastructure of the sprawling Cold War-era complex known as the Hanford Site. Yes, the Hanford Site in Washington State, home to the first full-scale plutonium production reactor, and the resonance chamber under the guise of Project Nightingale was a covert effort to use the reactor's massive, chaotic energy output to generate a specific, localized, non-nuclear field. A field that could, theoretically, disrupt the cohesion of subatomic particles. A weapon that didn't use bombs, but physics itself. The impossible deaths, the spontaneous ruptures, the systemic shutdowns, they were the real-world proof of concept, the early casualties of a machine designed to weaponize the fundamental instability of the universe. The machine didn't just kill people, it used their own bodies as the final experiment. The whistleblower, the investigator, the witness, they were trying to warn us that the deadliest thing we ever built wasn't the bomb itself. It was the hubris that allowed men to play God with the laws of nature, right beside the river, poisoning a community with an unseen, undetectable decay. They told us this place would save us from the night, but it was a factory for silent coffins, and every person who ever stepped inside became a living casualty of the promise. And today, decades after the project was officially shut down, the residue, the chronal dampening field's ghost, still lingers, a quiet monument to the lie that saved America by secretly destroying its own. This story is terrifying because it's not fiction. It's history that was intentionally buried. The files are there if you know where to look. I want to know what you think. Were these deaths purely a side effect, or were they the intended consequence of Project Nightingale? Let me know in the comments below. What other hidden projects do you think have left their silent stain on the American landscape? If you want more deep dive mysteries like this, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, keep your eyes open. You never know what ghosts are still lingering in the shadows of the past.